guys, we're ready to do July's blocks, and this month we're doing the 3 little reindeer blocks, and we made one of ours, Rudolph, and then also 3 more of the filler blocks. So let's get started. Okay, so what you're gonna need, the fabric out of your kit, and then go ahead and iron SF101 or the fusible backing onto the back of all 6 pieces. Then you're gonna get the 3 leather pieces out of your embellishment kit, out of the July bag. Your different colors of thread. There's 2 different colors of brown. And then I'm going to quilt these blocks in red, and then whatever color you're going to quilt the background for the reindeer. And then your batting, you're going to cut 3 4x4 and then 3 2x4 pieces of batting. Now, on the machine, since the little reindeer blocks, they're going to be identical. So I'm going to do the same quilting. I'm going to quilt mine in the paler pink color on that gray. So I'm going to group all of the designs together and then do the color sort and do all 3 blocks at one time. So first I'm going to go into the July folder, and I'm going to go get the background quilting. And for the back of the reindeer blocks, they're calling for Christmas 17. So it's that middle one there. We're going to go get the block by block folder, and we're going to get the 4x4 design. And then set that. And then I'm going to add the reindeer on top of it. So we're just going to go back into, whoops, wrong folder. 2026, don't go into 2025. Go into the embroidery file and get the reindeer. And then I'm going to set those right on top of each other. I'm going to select both of those files and then group them together. And then I'm going to save that in the memory of the machine. I'm going to move this set up here to this corner. I'm using the 9.5 by 14 hoop. Then I'm going to add another one, and I'm going to move it over here to this side. Now I'm going to add another one, and then move it down here. Nudge that one a little bit. Then once I go to the embroidery side, I'm going to go into layout. I'm going to hit the 3 little spools of thread, and that's your color sort. So now it's going to be the placement line for all the batting, placement line for all the fabrics. It's going to do everything together. And because I'm doing the same color quilting on each one, that's why I'm doing it this way for this month. No telling what we're going to do next month. So I've threaded up with the pink. It's going to start stitching the placement line for all 3 batting pieces, which these are my 4x4 batting. And so maybe while we figure out what's going on and I go through some spray my batting, we'll come back. Now it's stitched the placement line for all 3 pieces of batting, and so now I'm going to forward through the tack down, and I've got to go through all 3 of them. And so now it's going to stitch the placement line for the fabrics for all 3 of them. Okay, now after it's stitched the placement line for the fabric, I've laid my batting down, and then I'm going to lay the fabric. Now, these fabric pieces, because they are so large, they're going to overlap each other. So I'm going to lift this one up when I lay this one down, and then that way, and I'm going to kind of move them out of the way when they get to start stitching that. And you could honestly probably cut those corners, because we're going to be cutting these down. You know, we're going to be cutting them down to this fabric placement line. So, we're just going to move them out of the way. So, or you could do each block individually and then you don't have to worry about this.
You're supposed to.
Yeah, like you're supposed to. Or live on the edge. So I'm just going to move that up. And so we may kind of start and stop the machine a little bit to get the fabric out of the way. Okay, and so now it's going to stitch the tack down. So it's going to do the tack down for this top one first. So I'm just going to fold this fabric down out of the way. And then let it cut it. And then I'm going to stop it. And now I can fold this one out of the way, like that. After it does this tack down, then you can just kind of let them lay. So I wait, before I stop it, I wait for it to cut it. There we go. And like I said, if you wanted to, and I may do that, I'm going to trim these little ears away, and that way we don't have to worry about them. Because again, we're going to be cutting this down to this 4.5 by 4.5 inch size. So I'm just going to make life easier and trim those down. And now it's just going to go into the quilting, and it's going to quilt all 3 of them. And so we will be back when it's done doing the quilting. Now after the quilting, what it's going to stitch is the back set of antlers. And so it's recommending to thread up with the darker color brown for that. And so it'll stitch all 3 of those. What's going to stitch next are the back set of legs, or the set of legs that are in the background. And so I'm using, the color I'm using is 1134, and it kind of blends in with the leather a little bit, kind of a reddish brown color. Now it's ready to start the applique, so I'm going to leave that same brown color, just the reddish brown, and do the placement line for each of them. Okay, now I'm just laying the leather pieces down, and it's doing the tack down. And this is basically the cover stitch. So when it stitches this tack down, we're just going to trim right to the outside of this, and then it doesn't do any other kind of stitch along the edge of the leather. Okay, after it does that little tack down, I'm just going in and I'm trimming the leather. The leather is not the easiest thing to trim, and so what I'm doing, I'm using the little Ginger scissors, and I kind of hold them up at an angle, kind of like that when I go to trim. So I'm butting the blade up against the stitch, and then I'm holding it up, because if I hold it down, I can cut into the stitches. And so if I kind of hold it up like that, I'm not cutting into my stitches as easily. And just take little snips as you go around like that. And so I'll finish doing this one, and then we will kind of, and just keep rotating your hoop. And like there, I don't think I got close enough, so I'm just gonna take another little snip there, and then go go around his leg and just, yeah, keep rotating your hoop and make sure you don't cut through the stitches. If you do happen to cut through the tack down stitches, you can always back the machine up and go over it again. Okay, so I've got them all trimmed, and what's gonna stitch next will be the front antler, and then his little eye and the noses. And all three of these are using the same color thread. I've threaded up with the darker brown color, and so I'm not going to need to change colors or anything. So I'm going to go into the layout on my machine and just touch the blue spool of thread. So the 3 spools of thread do the color sorting, and that's where it groups the colors together. But the single blue spool of thread, that's going to be like a monochrome or a single color. So what it will do is just stitch the antlers on all 3 of them, the eyes on all 3 of them, and then the noses on all 3, and I won't have to come back here and start the machine again. So it'll just keep doing that. So we'll come back when it's done. Okay, we made a correction. Bailey decided one of them needed to be root off, so when it finished stitching this one's nose, I just stopped the machine and then I threaded up with red thread, and so this one will be root off. Now we're done doing the 3 blocks, but we still have to do the 3 filler blocks, and so I'm going to be kind of lazy, and I'm going to use and thrifty, and so I'm going to use the same piece of stabilizer. I'm not going to unhoop this yet. I'm going to go ahead and trim these blocks down just a little bit, and then I should have enough room here, here, and here to do the filler blocks. So we'll be back in a sec. Okay, so for the filler blocks, that's on page 4, and there's going to be actually 3 different files that we're going to be using, 1 for each block. So I'm going to go get the first one, which is going to be the winter 10. So I'm going back on into the July folder. We're going to go into the background quilting folder, and what did I say? Winter 10. And we want the block by block, and we want the 2 by 4. So it's the one with the little snowflake and the house. And I'm going to go ahead and set that. Now, before I add the others, I'm going to go ahead and capture what's in my hoop. So I'm going to scan it or take a picture. So this machine will scan it. So I'm going to go into the little camera right above edit, and then push scan and say okay, and it's going to start moving. I better get out of the way, and it's going to scan it. If you have the machine that you use your phone or your app to take the picture, you're going to go into the app, and you're going to be using the first one because we're in embroidery and we want to capture what's in the frame for positioning our pattern. So you'll just go into that one, and then you would take a picture of your hoop, and then that will come up on your screen. So now I can see where my 3 reindeer are, and so I'm going to move this one up here, and it'll be my first block. Make sure I stay within. I'm going to use the move arrows. And I've trimmed my reindeer blocks down, so I'm not going to be stitching into those. And then I'm going to add the next one, which is going to be bows 2. So we're going to go back into our July folder and into the background quilting. We want bows 2. And this one is going to be the horizontal 2 by 4. So, give me that one right there. Set it. Then I'm just going to move it over to the side. And I can see I'm going to miss my fabric for the 2 reindeer blocks. Then the next one I'm adding is still the bows too, but it's the vertical. So on the first one, the bow was right side up. On this one, the bow's going sideways. So back in. Background quilting, bows 2. And it'll be the 2x4 horizontal, or that one. No, vertical. The bow's going this way. And then we're gonna set it, and we're gonna move it down to this bottom right corner. And I'm gonna be stitching all 3 of these in the red thread, so I am gonna do the color sort, and that way it'll do the placement line, tack down, and all the quilting at the same time. So I'm gonna get it to the embroidery screen, go into layout, 3 spools of thread, and what it's going to stitch first will be the placement line for my batting. And so while it's doing that, I'm going to go spray my batting and the back of all my fabric pieces. Okay, after it stitched the batting placement line, I just went through and I went forwarded through the batting tack down, and now I'm stitching the fabric placement line for all 3 of them. I'm laying my batting down inside the batting placement. Oh wait, okay, the top design that I put on the screen first with the snowflake in the house, that's going to be stitched on the white fabric. So I'm going to lay that there. And then the other 2 are going to be stitched on the little red plaid fabric. And now it's going to do the tack down and then the quilting. And at this point, I can go into my layout, hit that single spool of thread, and it'll do tack down on all 3 and then go directly into the quilting, and we'll be done. And after it did the tack down, it just went directly into the quilting for these blocks. So we finished them and cut them down. The 3 reindeer blocks you're going to cut down to 4.5 by 4.5, and then the 3 filler blocks are going to be cut 2.5 by 4.5. And that's all.